Hey folks, got a great short today. One of my interviews I did in Dubai recently. This one is with Laura Aboli, and she made the viral video about transhumanism and about how all these elites and reprobates are actually trying to push an absurd agenda on the world just to weaken society and undermine us all. So I had a great short chat on it with Laura, and hope you enjoy. So delighted to meet you in person, Laura. And I enjoyed your viral video so much. It went really far, I think, didn't it?
It went really far. I haven't been able to keep tabs, but probably over 10 million views in different platforms. So clearly I struck a chord with people in what I was trying to convey at that conference.
Absolutely. No, it resonated because there's a growing number of people awakening, and that growing number of people, they're beginning to really get it. And your particular topic, the whole transhumanist kind of aspects of these senior leaders who are driving the nonsense, shall I say, a lot of people are getting very aware and interested in that. I might get you to give a brief background, because I'm not sure if you did in the video clip. It's just a very brief background of who you are, where you've come from.
Okay, well, I'm Spanish, actually. I was born in Madrid. My professional background, I started a couple of companies. One was a company called WorldCheck in the year 2000, which was the first global database of high-risk individuals. So anything from money launderers, human traffickers, drug traffickers, the lot. Things changed very rapidly after 9/11 because institutions were very much forced to do a lot more KYC and due diligence. Legislation changed. And so we then had to add a whole host of other people to the database, including what was called PEPs, which were politically exposed persons and their associates, their family members. So it then became a very large database of not just high risk, but potential high risk, or people that you needed to keep an eye on because they might have been more susceptible to corruption simply because of their political status. So that's kind of my background, which is in data and research, which I guess is why I started my awakening process already 12 years ago, because I like to question things. I have a very analytical mind, and my background sort of helped in that whole sort of sense. So that's kind of me in a snapshot when it comes to professional background.
Oh, absolutely. And as this very successful entrepreneur, I'm guessing that company that grew really large, and did you divested and moved to other projects?
Yes, we sold the company already quite a few years ago. We had started another one, which was a database of the most rich people in the world, or the wealthiest people in the world, high net worth individuals, as they were called. I also exited that company a few years ago, and now I still do my property business, which is one of my passions. And in 2020, when the pandemic started, I started getting really, really frustrated with what was happening, with the way that people's freedom and civil rights were being completely destroyed, and very much how people were accepting of it. I think that was one of the things that frustrated me the most. And I felt like I needed to do something. And that was coupled with the fact that I could see what the pandemic was about, and I could see that it was really about the vaccine quite ahead of most people. And I got the sense this was not going to be a very good thing for humanity to be taking an experimental jab. And so my initial motivation for starting my channel and the things that I'm doing right now was very much to stop people from taking the vaccine. That was me. Yeah. A total anti-vaxxer, right? Yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, like I often said to people in interviews, and it's true, in 2015 or maybe 16 in China on business, my corporate had a few vaccines that were recommended, not mandated. And I went down to the doctor and they slapped them in my arm, and I didn't even ask what they were. So that's how non-anti-vax I was before this, but this is 100% different. It's RNA, new technology platform, and the basis for deploying it is absurd. I mean, let's be honest, it's a bad flu equivalent. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But Laura, I'd like to get into the content of your viral video and the kind of juicy topic of this transhumanist nonsense that a lot of the senior people driving these agendas seem to be kind of obsessed with. What is it?
Well, the title of my talk actually was Transhumanism, the End Goal. Because I do believe that a lot of what we are seeing and a lot of what we've been through already in the last 5-6 decades is taking us to that post-human future. And the word post-human says it all. It's the destruction of humanity as we know it. And so where do you lie in that framework? Do you really want to be other than what you are? Are we really that incredibly stupid that we would agree to our own destruction? And so what I was trying to convey in my speech is that a lot of the steps that are taking us towards that very dystopian future have already been taken. And I described how society has been pushed to that psychological point of almost thinking that might be a good idea, right? And I think people really connected with what I was saying because a lot of it they had actually experienced already, and it goes to debilitating everything that actually gives us strength as humans. So it's like destruction of the human family. We've seen the attack on the human nuclear family, right? They've really gone after the nuclear family in a big way, which is the foundation of all of our strength, really, for most people, right? They've eradicated the concept of God or spirituality from education, which is, again, something that gives you a lot of power and a sense of empowerment, and that we're more than just flesh and bones. You have to understand transhumanists do not believe that there's any soul to us. We're just this, very materialistic concept of who we are. And if you go back 5-6 decades, you can really see the trend of how they're pushing us to accept we are these useless beings in the words of
Harari.
Yuval Noah Harari. We're these useless people, totally unempowered, and there's this psychological push to always make us feel so little, so small, that we would think the only way going forward is to accept technology within us. That's why there's this ongoing psychological operation for years of making us feel inadequate, powerless, helpless, and in his own words now, useless. He refers to us as the useless class. Hackable animals. Excuse me? Hackable animal? Are you kidding me? I'm not an animal, and by no means I'm going to allow myself to be hacked in any way. But this is the trend. This is where we're getting to.
Yeah, and it's just classic deceit. Save us all in human history. They're selling us a kind of a superhuman type kind of product, but what they're going to deliver is a Borg-like product. And it's clear as crystal. And for people listening who are maybe not as familiar with all of this, and it sounds a bit conspiracy theory, it's all documented and published. Harari in the World Economic Forum, he's right up with the most powerful people in the world, and with the UN connections rolling out the global goals. Yeah. All of this is documented, and these people are full of this guff. I mean, they love it. They're absolutely in love with it. And the fourth industrial revolution, Klaus Schwab himself in 2016, he's saying the same kind of thing. Hackable animals, implanted chips, upgrading the human
yes.
2.0.
That's right.
So in case anyone's listening thinking this is fringe, it's actually mainstream, only legacy media never really told you. It's coming in the back door into your psyche.
That's right. That's right. And I often say that. I say, this sounds like some sci-fi movie that I'm talking about, but actually some of the words that I'm saying are being spoken by people at the WEF. And when you hear Klaus Schwab standing in front of the room saying the future of humanity or the future of the world is decided by the people in this room, well, it's like, okay, right? He's not joking, right? And I think, they're really trying to establish a totalitarian technocracy. And the people behind that, the big tech guys, are all transhumanists. This is who's driving all of this. So we kind of need to start paying attention at the things that they're saying. And it's not me inventing it, it's them saying it. I'm just the one saying, hey, this doesn't sound like a good idea at all, right? But what's important, I think, for people to understand is that it's not about enhancing us because, we're going to be so much better. No, it's about controlling us. They will tell you you're going to be a superhuman. I think we're already superhumans. I really do. But it's about control. The minute that you are forming part of a grid because you've accepted certain technology within your system, you are controllable. We don't understand how much they will be able to do to us the minute that technology is literally running through our veins, right? Can they switch us off? Can they make us just drop dead? What is it? I'd rather not take the chance, right? I'd rather not take the chance.
Absolutely, and this is classic, just like all the other kind of stuff that went on over the last 50 years from these people. There's always an element of boiling frog. So the reality is it may start off with chips that help certain people with specific problems, which is kind of okay. That's a very practical, functional thing. Someone who's lost the use of their legs and a chip can help them regain some. But that's not what these guys are talking about. These guys are talking about everyone having a chip to pay your bills and to be scanned in the supermarket. Now, at the start, they may, of course, not have the ability to switch people off or control them. But we know how technology develops. So if we even allow the start of this nonsense, over time, increasing control, increasing power that these crazy nutters have, and they already have a lot, it will end up heading towards some really crazy stuff, like you mentioned. And it could be 10 years or 20, but the key is don't let it start. That's the way I look at it.
Exactly, don't let it start. And you were saying, and I started my speech that day by explaining that transhumanism is a huge umbrella. It encompasses everything from nanotechnology to cybernetics to all sorts of things. And I said, I am not against technology per se, and I'm definitely not against technology that helps someone with a disability regain some sort of normal quality of life. Nobody is. But that's the enter level. That's how they get in. Because nobody's going to say, no, don't implant this that's going to allow a blind person to see. Nobody would. But that's a very different thing to getting entire humanity hooked up to a system digitally. For what? Why? Do we need that? I don't think so. And so, like you say, it's really important that we don't take the first steps towards something we may not be able to stop. And what is really frightening is that people think of transhumanism, well, I'm not going to let them implant something into my brain. It's this mechanic, rather traumatic concept. Nanotechnology is the real danger, because nanotechnology can come through the air, through injections, through all sorts of things. So when they start talking about mRNA, altering our DNA, this is when it gets really, really scary, because the barrier is very small. You don't notice this. It's not like, oh, I'm going for surgery to have something implanted in my head. That's a big step for people to take. But nanotechnology, there are things like nanodust. There are nanotechnology in vaccines and all sorts of injections. So that's when we start to be, okay, we need to really be paying attention to this. And this is why I speak. I try to make people understand we don't need any of it to survive the future. This is the psychological operation that they're trying to push us to feel like we just won't survive the future in the face of AI, right? And this is why there's been such a push of AI, because psychologically it's like, whoa, like how am I going to keep up with the times? How am I going to still be able to work in an environment where AI is so much better than I? And it's just not true. Artificial intelligence is artificial.
And
real intelligence necessitates of something else: consciousness, awareness. And this is when I need to really make the point across to most people that we really are not just flesh and bone. We're not. We're so much more. Right? It's time we realize who we are before they destroy us completely. And I think they've realized that they've just got a window of opportunity now before a lot of people say, I can't buy into this. I feel I'm so much more. I know I'm so much more. And this is why they've tried to go against any spiritual type of conviction, because that's what gives you the strength to say, no, I'm not just some... Look, they've described us. I read an article once where the person that was being interviewed, which was part of the Institute for Human Future or something like that, I think it's called, in Oxford. And she's a total transhumanist, and she was describing us as sacks of meat, ape-brained. That was it. Ape-brained meats, sacks of meat.
Yeah.
And you go like, whoa, you might be describing yourself, lady. Don't include me in that. That's such a reductionist concept of who we are. But they need to make you believe that, because only then will you feel the necessity to implant technology to make you feel like you're something. When we're already so much, right?
Yeah. There's no way in the next century, I'm a technology person, and I know all these technologies are very sinister and very capable of what you touch on. But there's no way they're going to enhance the human in any significant way. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
100%. Some of these nutters believe they will. Most of them know it's power and control and a tyrannical kind of a, totalitarian system, and they will rule over it with caviar and champagne, and the ordinary people that get their silly chips and nano stuff, and they'll be told you can't eat meat because the planet's boiling, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
It's such an obvious scam to you and me, and yet we saw in COVID, and they've struck now with the climate and this stuff, because they're on the back of the success with COVID, that people actually fell for that. Still astonishes me, but I'm going to get back to you. The reality is people are waking up, and I think we'll end on a positive note.
Yeah.
There's a growing awareness, and a lot of stuff like this that people used to perceive as conspiracy theory, which is a scam in itself, the term.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people now saying, hold on, there seem to be a lot of nutters up top. What's going on at the moment, right?
I agree. And that's what fills me with hope, is the fact that I can see every day how people are beginning to become more aware of things. They're beginning to question more things. You're beginning to actually be able to have conversations with people that 3 years ago I would not have been able to, because they would have just totally said, nutter of a woman, what is she talking about? But now they'll go, there might be some truth to that, because I am seeing things around me that make no sense. And for some reason, there's been an acceleration of things going on in the world, and that's a good thing. It's a scary thing, but it's a good thing, because it forces people to wake up. Because now they're like looking right, left, and center, thinking, nothing makes sense anymore. And we can talk about transgenderism, and we can talk about all these wars, and we can talk about illegal immigration, and we can talk about all of these things that are going on with people going, this is madness. Yeah. But actually, it's not madness. I wish it was just madness. It's part of a plan. It's part of an agenda that they're trying to get us to accept with that totalitarian technocracy that they're dreaming of, that they've been dreaming of for a very long time. This is why they push towards digitalization. This is why everything needs to be smart. This is why they need us to be one more thing in the Internet of Things. They already talk about the Internet of Bodies. They want us to become digitalized, because then everything fits in really nicely into this matrix that they can easily control. At the moment, they need a lot of resources to control us, a lot, because they can only control us by modifying our perception of things. I need to sell you something, right? I need to sell to you that you need to take this vaccine. So first I'm going to drive you crazy with fear. It takes a lot of resources to do that, because the only way they can control us at the moment is by controlling our perception of what is going on. But people are becoming very aware, and people are waking up. So it's like we can't control the perception anymore. This is why at the WEF, the main thing was misinformation and disinformation. It was like the biggest threat to humanity. It's like, no. This is the biggest threat to your plans, which is very different, right? And this is the good thing, is that people are becoming wiser. And so they're panicking. And so that's why we're going to see a big push. Censorship is going to be a big thing. It already has been. I know that you've been, on the on the receiving end of that. I have too. But that's going to be a major thing, because we are waking up. Humanity is waking up, and this is the good thing. And I'm just there trying to help along.
Absolutely, Laura, and making a fantastic job of it too. So I'll just end with this conference. I've met such fantastic and amazing people. You are absolutely among that. And you know what? I didn't come across, with 70 or 80 people, a single 8-brained sack of meat in the whole conference. Quite the opposite, I think you'd agree.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the thing. I think what's important for people to really take in is that we are so much more than what they're trying to convince you that you are. We are under a psyop. We have been for a long time. We're still there, where they're trying to tell you you're nothing. We are everything.
And they essentially are nothing, only for the power they currently wield, which may fall a lot in the coming years, even with desperate censorship attempts.
Absolutely. Here we are. We'll keep
Thank
fighting.
you, Laura.
Ivor, wonderful to meet you.
You too.
Thank you.
So there you have it, folks. I was at a conference where I gave a couple of keynotes to investor type people. Laura was there and was a fantastic contributor. So great lady. And just a reminder, as always, that my work does require support, if possible, through Patreon or PayPal. And huge thanks to all my existing Patreons and PayPal supporters who help keep the show on the road. We gotta counter these transhumanist madmen and the occasional mad woman, if the truth be told, and of course the legacy media that they largely at this stage own, so they can feed us a massive pipeline, a huge faucet of nonsense, and of course feed it to our children too, which is something that we have to counter, and we're on the razor's edge, but we'll win in the end. Thank you.